Hello everyone, today we're gonna talk about 9/11 terrorist attack, conspiracy theories. It's been known as the biggest terrorist attack in the world. And there are various conspiracy theories that attribute the preparation and execution of the September 11 attacks against the United States to parties other than or in addition to al-Qaeda. This includes the theories that the high-level government officials had advanced knowledge of the attacks. Government investigations and independent reviews have rejected these theories. Proponents of these theories assert that there are inconsistencies in the commonly accepted versions, or that there exists evidence that was ignored, concealed, or overlooked. The most prominent conspiracy theories is that the collapse of the Twin Towers and 7 World Trade Center were the result of controlled demolitions rather than the structural failure due to impact and fire. Another prominent belief is that the Pentagon was hit by missiles launched by elements from inside the US government or that hijacked planes were remotely controlled or that a commercial airliner was allowed to do so via an effective stand down of the American military. Possible motives claimed by conspiracy theorists for such actions include justifying the invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq, to advance the geostrategic interests such as plans to construct a natural gas pipeline through Afghanistan. Other conspiracy theories revolve around authorities having advanced knowledge of the attacks and deliberately ignoring or assisting the attackers. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, and the technology magazine Popular Mechanics have investigated and rejected the claims made by 9/11 conspiracy theorists. The 9/11 Commission and most of the civil engineering community accept that the impact of jet aircrafts at high speeds in combination with subsequent fires, not controlled demolition, led to the collapse of the Twin Towers. But some conspiracy theories groups, including architects and engineers for 9/11's truth, disagree with the arguments made by NIST and Popular Mechanics. So let's talk more about this background. 9/11 conspiracy theorists reject one or both of the following facts about 9/11 attacks. The first one: al-Qaeda suicide operatives hijacked and crashed United Airlines Flight 175 and American Airlines Flight 11 into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center and crashed American Airlines Flight 77 into the Pentagon. The impact and resulting fires caused the collapse of the Twin Towers and the destruction and damage of other buildings in the World Trade Center complex. The Pentagon was severely damaged by the impact of the airliner and resulting fire. The hijackers also crashed a force plane into a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, after the passengers and flight crew attempted to regain control of the aircraft. And the second one: pre-attack warnings of varying detail of the planned attacks against the United States by al-Qaeda were ignored due to a lack of communication between various law enforcement and intelligence personnel. For the lack of the inter-sea communications, the 9/11's report cited bureaucratic inertia and laws passed in the 1970s to prevent abuses that caused scandals during that era. Most notably, the Watergate scandal. The report faulted both the Clinton and the Bush administration with failure of imaginations. So this consensus views is backed by various sources, including the first one: the reports from government investigations, the 9/11 Commission report that incorporated intelligence information from the early FBI investigations, PNTBOM, and the Joint Inquiry of 2002, and the studies into building performance carried out by the Federal Emergency Management Agency FEMA and National Institute of Standards and Technology NIST. So the second one is investigations by non-government organizations that support the accepted account, such as those by scientists at Purdue University. The third one, articles supporting these facts and theories appearing in magazines such as Popular Mechanics, Scientific American, and Time. And first one, the last one, similar articles in news media throughout the world, including the Times of India, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, the BBC, Le Monde, Deutsche Welle, the Austrian Broadcasting Company Corporation, yeah, and the Chosun Ilbo of South Korea. So now I would suggest to talk more about the history. So, since the attack, a variety of conspiracy theories have been put forward in websites, books, and films. Many groups and individuals advocating 9/11 conspiracy theories identify as a part of 9/11 truth movement. Within 6 hours of the attack, a suggestion appeared on the internet chat room suggesting that the collapse of the towers looked like an act of controlled demolition. If in a few hours not one official has mentioned anything about the controlled demolition part, the author wrote, I think we have a really serious problem. The first theories that emerged focused primarily on various perceived anomalies in the publicly available evidence, and proponents later developed more specific theories about an alleged plot. One false allegation that was widely circulated by email and on the web is that not a single Jew had been killed in the attack, and and that therefore the attacks might have been the work of the Mossad, not Islamic terrorists. The first elaborated theories appeared in Europe. 1 week after the attack, the inside job theory was the subject of a thesis by a researcher from the French National Center for Scientific Research, published in Le Monde. Other theories sprang from the far corners of the globe within weeks. 6 months after the attacks, Thierry Meillan's piece on 9/11, Le Fortable Impostor, topped the French bestseller list. Its publication in English received little attention, but it remains one of the principal sources of trutherism. 2003 saw the publication of the CIA and September 11 by former German State Minister Andreas von Bülow, and Operation 9/11 by German journalist Gerhard Wisniewski. Both books are published by Matthias Brokers, who was at the time an editor at the German newspaper Die Tageszeitung. While these theories were popular in Europe, they were treated by the US media with either bafflement or amusement, and they were dismissed by the US government as the product of anti-Americanism. In an address to the United Nations on November 10, 2001, President George W. Bush denounced the emergence of all outrageous conspiracy theories and attempt to shift the blame away from the terrorists themselves, away from the guilty. So, the 9/11 conspiracy theories started out mostly in the political left, but have broadened into what New York Magazine describes as terra incognita, where left and right meet. 50s and 60s counterculture distract with the don't read on me variety. By 2004, conspiracy theories about the September 11th attacks began to gain ground in the United States. One explanation is that the rise in popularity stemmed more from growing criticism of the Iraq War and the newly re-elected President George Bush than from any discovery of new or more compelling evidence or an improvement in the technical quality of the presentation of the theories. Night Read News theorized that the revelations that weapon of mass destruction did not exist in Iraq. The belated release of the President's Daily Brief of August 6, 2001, and reports that NORAD had lied to the 9/11 commissions may have fueled the conspiracy theories. Between 2004 and the fifth anniversary of September 11th attack in 2006, mainstream coverage of the conspiracy theories increased. The US government issued a formal analysis by the National Institute of Standards and Technology (NIST) of the collapse of the World Trade Center. To address the growing publicity of the theories, the State Department revised the webpage in 2006 to debunk them. In 2006 National Security Strategy paper declared that the terrorism springs from subcultures of conspiracy and misinformation, and that terrorists recruit more effectively from populations whose information about the world is contaminated by falsehoods and corrupted by conspiracy theories. The distortions keep alive grievances and filter out facts that would challenge popular prejudice and self-serving propaganda. Al-Qaeda has repeatedly claimed the responsibility for the attacks, with Chief Deputy Ayman al-Zawahiri accusing Shia Iran and Hezbollah of denigrating Sunni success in hurting America by intentionally starting rumors that Israel carried out the attacks. Some of the conspiracy theories about the September 11th attack do not involve presidential strategies typical of many conspiracy theories that establish a clear dichotomy between good and evil, or guilty and innocent. Instead, they call up gradations of negligence and complicity. Matthias Brockes, an early proponent of such theories, dismissed the commonly accepted account of the September 11 attacks as being itself a conspiracy theory that seeks to reduce complexity, disentangle what is confusing, and explain the inexplicable. Just before the fifth anniversary of the attacks, mainstream news outlets released a flurry of articles on the growth of 9/11 conspiracy theories, with an article in the Times stating that this is not a fringe phenomenon. It is a mainstream political reality. Several surveys have included questions about beliefs related to the September 11 attacks. In 2008, 9/11 conspiracy theories topped a greatest conspiracy theory list completed by the Daily Telegraph. The list was ranked by following attraction. In 2010, the International Center of 9/11 Studies, a private organization that is said to be sympathetic to conspiracy theories, successfully sued for the release of videos collected by NIST of the attacks and aftermath. According to the German daily Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, the videos that were published shortly before the 9th anniversary of the attacks provide new food for conspiracy theories. Many of the videos show images of 7th World Trade Center, a skyscraper in the vicinity of the WTC towers that also collapsed on September 11, 2001. 9/11 truth figures Stephen Jones and Mike Berger have further added that the death of Osama bin Laden did not change their questions about the attacks, don't provide closure. According to writer Jeremy Stachel, since Bush left office, the overall number of beliefs 9/11 conspiracy theories has dipped, while the number of people who believe in the most radical theories had held fairly steady. So let's talk about some types. So the most prominent conspiracy theories can be broadly divided into three main forms. So the first one is LIHOP, let it happen on purpose, suggests that the key individuals within the government had at least some foreknowledge of the attacks and deliberately ignored or actively weakened United States defenses to ensure the hijacked flights were not intercepted. Similar allegations were made about Pearl Harbor. The second one is MIHOP, make or made it happen on purpose. That key individuals within the government planned the attack and collaborated with or framed al-Qaeda is carrying them out. There is a range of opinions about how this might have been achieved. And the third one is others who rejected the accepted account of the September 11th attacks, but not proposing specific theories, but try to demonstrate that the US government's account of the events is wrong. This is, according to them, would lead to a general call for new official investigations into events of September 11th, 2001. According to Jonathan Kai, managing editor for comment at the Canadian newspaper National Post, and author of Among the Truthers, A Journey Through America's Growing Conspiracies Underground, they feel their job is to show everyone that the official theory of 9/11 is wrong, and then when everybody is convinced, that then the population will rise up and demand a new investigation with government resources. And that investigation will tell us what actually happened. So now we can talk about some theories and for knowledge. Conspiracy theories claims that the actions or inaction by US officials with foreknowledge was intended to ensure that the attacks took place successfully. For example, Michael Meeker, former British Environment Minister and member of Tony Blair's government, said that the United States knowingly failed to prevent the attacks. So, suspected insider trading. Some conspiracy theorists maintain that just before 9/11, an extraordinary amount of put options were placed on United Airlines and American Airlines stocks, and speculate that insiders may have known in advance of the coming events of 9/11 and placed their bets accordingly. An analysis into the possibility of insider trading on 9/11 concludes that a measure of abnormal long put volume was also examined and seen to be an abnormally high levels in the days leading up to the attacks. Consequently, the papers conclude that there is evidence of unusual option market activity in the days leading up to September 11th that is consistent with the investors trading on advanced knowledge of the attacks. This study was intended to address the great deal of speculation about whether option market activity indicated that the terrorists or their associates had traded in days leading up to September 11th on advanced knowledge of the impending attacks. In the days leading up to 9/11, analysis show a rise in the put to call ratio for United States Airlines and American Airlines, the two airlines from which planes were hijacked on 9/11. Between September 6th and 7th, the Chicago Board Options Exchange recorded purchase of 4,744 put options contracts in UAL and 396 call options. On September 10th, more trading in Chicago saw the purchase of 4,516 put options in American Airlines. The other airline involved in the hijackings were with a mere 748 calls options in American purchased that day. So, no other airline companies had an unusual put-to-call ratio in the days leading up to the attacks. The 9/11 commissions concluded that all these abnormal patterns in trading were coincidental. Insurance companies saw anomalous trading activities as well. Citigroup, which estimated that its travelers' insurance unit could pay $500 million in claims for the World Trade Center attack, had about 45 times the normal volume during 3 days before the attack for options that profit if the stocks falls before $40. Citigroup shares fell $1.25 in late trading to $38.09. Morgan Stanley, which occupied 22 floors at the World Trade Center, experienced bigger than normal pre-attack trading of options that profited when stock prices fell. Also, companies directly affected by the strategy had similar jumps. The initial options were both through at least two brokerage firms, including NFS, a subsidiary of Fidelity Investments, and TD Waterhouse. It was estimated that the traders of or trade the trader or traders have realized a $5 million profit. The Securities and Exchange Commission launched an insider trading investigations in which Osama bin Laden was a suspect after receiving information from at least one Wall Street firm. The 9/11 Commission report concluded that exhaustive investigation by the Securities and Exchange Commission, FBI, and other agencies have uncovered no evidence anyone with advanced knowledge and of the attacks profited through securities transactions. The report further stated highly published allegations of insider trading in advance of 9/11 generally rest on reports of unusual pre-9/11 trading activity in companies whose stock plummeted after the attacks. Some unusual trading did in fact occur, but each such trade proved to have an innocuous explanations. For example, the volume of put options. Investments that pay off only when a stock drops in price surged in the parent companies of United Airlines on September 6 and American Airlines on September 10th. Highly suspicious trading on its face. Yet further investigation has revealed that the trading had no connection with 9/11. A single US-based institute and investor with no conceivable ties to al-Qaeda purchased 95% of the UAL puts on September 6 as a part of trading strategy that also included buying 115,000 shares of American on September 10th. Similarly, much of the seemingly suspicious trading in American on September 10th was traced to specific US-based options trading newsletter, faxed to its subscribers on Sunday, September 9th, which recommended these trades. These examples typify the evidence examined by the investigators, the SAC, and the FBI, aided by other agencies and the securities industry, devoted enormous resources to investigating this issue. Including securing the cooperation of many foreign governments, these investigators have found that the apparently suspicious consistently proved innocuous. So, the next one is air defense stand-down theory. A common claim among conspiracy theorists is that the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NRAD, issued a stand-down order of deliberately scrambled flights laid to allow the hijacked airplanes to reach their targets without interference. According to this theory, NORAD had the capability of locating and intercepting planes on 9/11, and its failure to do so indicates a government conspiracy to allow the attacks to occur. Conspiracy theorist Mark R. Elsey says that there is only one explanation for this. Our Air Force was ordered to stand down on 9/11. One of the first actions taken by the hijackers on 9/11 was to turn off or disable each of the 4 aircrafts on board transponders. Without these transponder signals to identify the airplane's tail number, attitude, and speed, the hijacked airplanes will have been only blips among 4,500 other blips on NORAD's radar screens, making them very difficult to track. On 9/11, only 14 fighter jets were on alert in the contiguous 48 states. There was no automated method for the civilian air traffic controls to alert NORAD. A passenger aircraft had not been hijacked in the United States since 1979. They had to pick up the phone and literally yell us, says March Douglas Martin, public affairs officer for NORAD. Only one civilian plane, a chartered Learjet 35 with golfer Payne Stewart and 5 others on board, was intercepted by NORAD over North America in the decade prior to 9/11, which took 1 hour and 18 minutes. Rules in effect at the time on 9/11 barred supersonic on intercepts. Before 9/11 and all other NORAD interceptions were limited to offshore air defense identification zone, short as ADIZ. Until 9/11, there was no domestic ADIZ, says FAA spokesman Bill Schumann. After 9/11, the FAA and NORAD increased cooperation. They set up hotlines between command centers, while NORAD increased its fighter coverage and installed radar to watch airspace over the continent. The longest warning NORAD received of the hijackings was some 8 minutes for American Airlines Flight 11, the first flight hijacked. The FAA alerted NORAD that the hijacked Flight 175 is just about the same time it was crashing into the World Trade Center South Tower. The FAA notified NORAD of the missing not hijacked Flight 77 3 minutes before it struck the Pentagon. NORAD received no warnings of the hijack of United Flight 93 until 3 minutes after it had crashed in Pennsylvania. So, next theory is a large communications leak. So, Camera and GTA criticized claims by Carl Cameron, who stated 13 suspects in the September 11th attack may have managed to stay ahead of them by knowing who and when investigators are calling on the telephone by using information from Armed Dogs Limited, an Israeli-based private communications company, and Converse Infosys, another Israeli-run company that provides electronic eavesdropping technology for the US government. So that's a quite short theory. And the next one is about the Israeli agents. It has been claimed that the Israeli agents may have had foreknowledge of their attacks, and the persistent theory claimed Israeli and or Jewish involvement. 4 hours after the attack, the FBI arrested 5 Israelis who had been filming the smoking skyline from the roof of a white van in the parking lot of an apartment building for puzzling behavior. The Israelis probably just happened the events, and one bystander said they acted in suspicious manner. They were like happy, they didn't look shocked to me. I thought it was very strange. The one was found to be owned by an Israeli-owned company called Urban Moving, which the FBI believed was providing cover for an Israeli intelligence operation. The case was then moved to the FBI's Foreign Intelligence section, according to former CAI operations chief. Many people in the US intelligence community believe that some of the men arrested were working for Israeli intelligence. A spokesperson for the Israeli embassy in the United States said the men had not been involved in any intelligence operations in the United States. The FBI eventually concluded that the 5 Israelis probably had no foreknowledge of the attacks. So, the next theory is about World Trade Center. The planes crashed and resulting fires caused the collapse of the World Trade Center. Controlled demolition conspiracy theories said the collapse of the North Tower, South Tower, or of 7 World Trade Center was caused by explosives installed in the buildings in advance. Demolition theory proponents such as Brigham Young University, physics Stephen E. Jones, architect Richard Gage, software engineer Jim Hoffman, the theologian David Ray Griffin argued that the aircraft impacts and resulting fires could not have weakened the buildings sufficiently to initiate a catastrophic collapse, and that the building would not have collapsed completely, nor at the speeds that they did, without additional factors weakening the structures. In the article active thermotic material discovered in dust from the 9/11 World Trade Center catastrophe, which appeared in the Open Chemicals Physics Journal. Authors Niels Harrit of the University of Copenhagen's Department of Chemistry, Jeffrey Farrer of Brigham Young University's Department of Physics and Astronomy, Stevens E. Jones, and others state that thermite and nanothermite composites in dust and debris were found following the collapse of the three buildings. The article contained no scientific rebuttal, and the editor-in-chief of the publication subsequently resigned. Jones has not explained how the amount of explosives needed to bring down the buildings could have been positioned in the two buildings without drawing attention, but mentioned efforts to research the buildings, maintenance activity in the weeks prior the event. Federal investigations at the National Institute of Standards and Technology state that enormous quantities of thermite will have to be applied to the structural columns to damage them. But Jones disputed this, saying that he and others were investigating super thermite. Brent Blanchard, authors of A History of Explosive Demolition in America, who corresponded with Jones, states that questions about the viability of Jones' theories remain unanswered, such as the fact that no demolition personnel noticed any telltale signs of thermite during the 8 months of debris removal following the tower's collapse. Blanchard also said that a verifiable chain of possessions needs to be established for the tested beams, which did not occur with the beams Jones tested, raising questions of whether the metal pieces tested could have been cut away from the debris pile with the acetylene, torches, shears, or other potentially contaminated equipment while on site, or exposed to the trace amounts or thermite or other compounds while being handled, while in storage, or while being transferred from ground zero to memorial sites. Jones also said that molten steel found in the rubble was evidence of explosives, as an ordinary airplane fire would not generate enough heat to produce this. Citing photographs of red debris being removed by construction equipment, but Blanchard said that if there had been any molten steel in the rubble, any excavation equipment encountering it would have been immediately damaged. Also, sampling of the pulverized dust by United States Geological Survey and RG did not report any evidence of thermite or explosives. It had been theorized that the thermite material found was premier paint. Dave Thomas of Skeptical Inquirer magazine, nothing than the residue in question was claimed to be thermonic because of its iron oxide and aluminium composition, pointed out that these substances are found in many items common to the towers. Thomas said that in order to cut through a vertical steel beam, special high temperature containment must be added to prevent the molten iron from dropping down, and that the thermite reaction is too slow for it to be practically used in building demolition. Thomas pointed out that when Jesse Ventura hired New Mexico Tech to conduct demonstrations showing nanothermite slicing through a large steel beam, the nanothermite produced copious flame and smoke, but no damage to the beam, even though it was in a horizontal and therefore optimal position. So, the National Institute of Standards and Technology NIST concluded the accepted version was more than sufficient to explain the collapse of the buildings, and many scientists have refused to debate the conspiracy theories because they feel it will give those theories unwarranted credibility. specialists in structural mechanics and structural engineering accept the model of fire in the induced gravity-driven collapse of the World Trade Center buildings without the use of explosives. As a result, NIST said that it did not perform any test for the residue of explosive compounds of any kind in the debris. Soon after the day of the attacks, major media sources published that the towers had collapsed due to the heat melting to the steel. The erroneous claim that the combustion temperature of jet fuel could not melt steel contributed to the belief among skeptics that the towers would not have collapsed without external interference. The basic claim is false because the combustion temperature of kerosene, that is the jet fuel, is in fact more than 500 degrees higher than the melting point of structural steel, 2093 points of Celsius, so versus less than 1539 degree Celsius degree. Further, NIST did not claim that the steel melted, but rather that the heat softened and weakened the steel, and that weakening, together with the damage caused by the plane's impacts, caused structural collapse. NIST reported a simulation model based on the sample assumption that combustible vapors burned immediately upon mixing with the incoming air showed that at any given location, the durations of gas temperature near 1000 Celsius degree was about 15 to 20 minutes. The rest of the time, the calculated temperature were 500 degrees or below. So the next conspiracy theory is about the Pentagon. So political activist, theory mason, and filmmaker Dylan Avery claimed that American Airlines Flight 77 did not crash into the Pentagon. Instead, they argued that the Pentagon was hit by a missile launched by elements from inside the US government. Some claim that the holes in the Pentagon walls were far too small to have been made by a Boeing 757. How does a plane 125 feet wide and 155 feet long fit into a hole which is only 60 feet across? Mason's book, Affordable Imposture, published in English as 9/11 The Big Lie, became available in more than a dozen languages. When released, the book was heavily criticized by both the mainstream French and American press, and later from within the 9/11 truth movement, the French newspaper Liberation called the book a tissue of wild and irresponsible allegations entirely without foundation. In response to the conspiracy theorists' claim of a missile hitting the Pentagon, Mitty Southern, a professor of civil engineering at Purdue University, argues that a crashing jet doesn't punch a cartoon-like outline of itself into a reinforced concrete building. When Flight 77 hit the Pentagon, one wing hit the ground and the other was sheared off by the Pentagon load-bearing columns. According to Architecture Week, the reason the Pentagon took relatively little damage from the impact was because H1 has recently been renovated. Evidence contradicts in some conspiracy theorists claim terrorists, not the terrorist, so not a huge difference between these pronunciations. So terrorists claim of a missile hitting the Pentagon have been described by researchers within 9/11 truth movement, such as Jim Hoffman in his essay "The Pentagon Attack: What the Physical Evidence Shows," and by others broadly refuting the role of other conspiracies in the attacks. The evidence refuting missile claims includes the airplane debris, including Flight 77's black boxes, the nose cone, landing gear, an airplane tire, and an intact cockpit seat were observed at the crash site. The remains of passengers from Flight 77 were indeed found at the Pentagon crash site and their identities confirmed by DNA analysis. Foreign governments such as the Chinese Foreign Ministry, FMPRC, also confirmed the deaths of their citizens on board Flight 77. Many eyewitnesses saw the plane strike the Pentagon. Further, Flight 77 passengers made phone calls reporting that their airplane had been hijacked. For example, passengers Renee May called her mother to tell her that the plane had been hijacked and that the passengers had been herded to the back of the airplane. Another passenger named Barbara Olson called her husband and said that the flight had been hijacked and then the hijackers had knives and box cutters. Some conspiracy theories said that the phone calls the passenger made were fabricated by Voss morphine, the passenger's bodies disposed of, and a missile fired at the Pentagon. The pressure group Judicial Watch filed a Freedom of Information Act request on December 15, 2004 to force the government to release video recorded from the Sheraton National Hotel, the Nexcom Citgo gas station, Pentagon security cameras, and the Virginia Department of Transportation. On May 16, 2006, the government released the Pentagon security camera videos to Judicial Watch. The image of American Airlines Flight 77, which appears in the videos, had been described as a white blob or a white streak, a thin white blur, and a silver speck low to the ground. A sequence of 5 frames from one of the videos already appeared in the media in 2002. Some conspiracy theorists believe that the new video does not answer their questions. So the next conspiracy is about Flight 93. The first plane hijacked on 9/11, United Airlines Flight 93 crashed into an open field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, after the passengers revolted. Out of the 4 planes hijacked on the day, Flight 93 was the only one not to reach its target. One conspiracy theory surrounding this event is the claim that Flight 93 was shot down by a U.S. fighter jet. David Ray Griffin and Alex Jones have asserted that large parts of the plane, including the main body of the engine, landed miles away from the main wreckage site, too far away from an ordinary plane crash. Jones says that planes usually leave a small debris field when they crash, and that this is not compatible with reports of wreckage found farther away from the main crash site. One person claimed that the main body of the engine was found miles away from the main wreckage site, with damage comparable to that which a heat-seeking missile would to do an airliner. According to some theories, the plane had to be shut down by government because passengers had found out about the alleged plot. According to Phil Moll of Skeptic magazine, these claims rest largely on unsupported assertions that the main body of the engine or other large parts of the plane turned up miles from the main wreckage site, and its location was consistent with the directions in which the plane has been traveling. Michael K. Hines, an airline accident expert who investigated the crash of TWA Flight 800 in 1996, said that at very high velocities of 500 miles per hour or more, it would only take a few seconds to move or tumble across the ground of 300 yards. Reports of wreckage discovered at Indian Lake by local residents are accurate. CNN reported that investigators found debris from the crash at least 8 miles away from the crash site, including in New Baltimore. According to CNN, This debris was all very light material that the wind would have easily blown away, and the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette article from September 14, 2001 described the material as mostly papers, strands of charted insulations, and an androgen paycheck. The same article quotes FBI agent Bill Crowley that lighter, smaller debris probably shot into the air on the heat of a fireball, with witnesses said shot several hundred feet into the air after the jetliner crashed. Then it probably rode a wind that was blowing southeast at about 9 miles per hour. Also, the distance between the crash site and Indian Lake was misreported in some accounts. According to the BBC, in a straight line, Indian Lake is just over a mile from a crash site. The road between the two locations takes a roundabout road of 6.9 miles, accounting for the erroneous reports. Some conspiracy theorists believe in a small white jet seen flying over the crash area may have fired a missile to shoot down Flight 93. Government agencies such as the FBI assert this small plane was a Dassault Falcon business jet asked to descend to an altitude of around 1,500 feet to survey the impact. Ben Sliney, who was the FAA operator manager on September 11, 2001, says no military aircraft were near Flight 93. Some internet videos, such as Loose Change, speculate that Flight 93 safely landed in Ohio and substituted plane was involved in the crash in Pennsylvania. Often cited in preliminary news report that Flight 93 landed at a Cleveland airport. It was later learned that Delta Flight 1989 was the plane confused with Flight 93, and the report was retracted as an inaccurate. Several websites within the 9/11 truth movement dispute these claims, citing the wreckage at the scene, eyewitnesses' testimony, and the difficulty of secretly substituting one plane for another, and claimed that such a hoax theories appeared calculated to alienate victims, survivors, and the larger public from 9/11 truth movement. The editor of the article has since written a rebuttal to the claims. Valencia McClatchy, a local woman who took the only photograph of the mushroom cloud from the impact of Flight 93 seconds after it hit the ground, says she has been harassed over the telephone and in person by conspiracy theorists who claimed she faked the photo. The FBI, the Somerset County authorities, the Smithsonian, and the National Park Service's Flight 93 National Memorial staff have all individually examined this photograph as well as the film negatives, and all four agencies consider the photo to be authentic. While some conspiracy theorists have claimed that passengers of Flight 93 and or Flight 77 were murdered or that they were relocated with the intent that they never be found. Others within the 9/11 truth movement, such as Jim Hoffman and scholars for 9/11 truth and justice, repudiate such claims. So the next theory is about hijackers. During the initial confusion surrounding the immediate aftermath of September 11th attacks, the BBC published the names of identities of what they believed to be some of the hijackers. Some of the people named were later discovered to be alive, a fact that was seized by upon 9/11 conspiracy theorists as proof that the hijackers were faked. The BBC explained that the initial confusion may have arisen because the names they reported back in 2001, common Arabic and Slavic names. In response to a request from the BBC, the FBI said that it was confident to have identified all 19 hijackers, yeah, and that none of the other inquiries had raised the issue of doubt about their identities. The New York Times also acknowledged this as cases of mistaken identity. According to John Bradley, the former managing editor of Arab News in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, the only public information about the hijackers was a list of names issued by the FBI of September 14, 2001. When the FBI released photographs 4 days after they cited reports on September 27th, the mistaken identities were quickly resolved. According to Bradley, all of this is attributable to the chaos that prevailed during the first days following the attack. What we are dealing with are coincidentally identical names. In Saudi Arabia, says Bradley, the names of two of the alleged surviving attackers, Said al-Ghami and Walid al-Shari, are as common as John Smith in the United States or Great Britain. According to Thomas Kane, chair of the 9/11 Commission, 16 of the 19 shouldn't have been gotten in the United States in any way at all because there was something wrong with their visas, something wrong with their passports. They should simply have been stopped at the border. There was 16 of the 19. Obviously, if even half of those people had been stopped, there never would have been a plot. It is hard to pronounce these names, but so both of them identified as the al-Qaeda agents by SIA, but that information was not shared with the FBI or US immigration, so both men were able to legally enter the US to prepare for 9/11's attacks. But that's just a theory, so I don't believe in it, to be honest. So yeah. Then the next one is about foreign governments. There are allegations that individuals within the Pakistani Inter-Services Intelligence ISI may have played an important role in financing the attacks. There are also claims that other foreign intelligence agencies such as Israeli Mossad had foreknowledge of the attacks and that some Saudi officials may have played a role in financing the attacks. General Hamid Gul, a former head of ISI, believes the attacks were an inside job originating in the United States, perpetrated by Israel or neoconservatives. Francesco Cossiga, former president of Italy from 1985 until his 1992 resignation over Operation Gladio, said that it is common knowledge among the Italian center-left that 9/11 attacks were a joint operation of CIA and the Mossad. Subsequent reports indicated that he did not actually believe this. So, Israel. A conspiracy theory documented by the Anti-Defamation League Tom Burnett and others is that the state of Israel was involved in the attacks and may have planned them. A variety of motives are suggested, including to cause the United States to attack enemies of Israel, to divert public attention away from Israel's treatment of Palestinians, to help Zionists take control of world affairs, and to persuade Americans to support Israel. Variants of the theory contend that the attack was organized by Ariel Sharon, Mossad, or the government of Israel. Kevin Barrett, a former lecturer at the University of Wisconsin, is, according to Slate website, a leading advocate of theories that Israel's Mossad orchestrated the 9/11 attacks. Some proponents of this believe that Jewish employees were forewarned by Israeli intelligence to skip work on September 11th, resulting in no Jewish death at the World Trade Center. According to Cinnamon Stilwell, some 9/11 conspiracy theorists put this number as high as 4,000 Jewish people skipping work. This was first reported on September 17th by the Lebanese Hezbollah-owned satellite television channel Al-Manar and is believed to be based on September 12th edition of the Jerusalem Post that said the Foreign Ministry in Jerusalem has so far received the names of 4,000 Israelis believed to have been in the areas of the World Trade Center and the Pentagon at the time of the attack. The number of Jews who died in the attacks is variously estimated between 270 and 400. The lower figure tracks closely with the percentages of Jews living in the New York area and partial surveys of the victims' listed religion. The U.S. State Department has published a partial list of 76 in response to claim that fewer Jews Israelis died in the WTC attacks than should have been present at the time. 5 Israeli citizens died in the attack. So, the next one is anti-Semitism in the conspiracy theories. So, the next one is no planes theory. Former chief economist within the Labor Department under the Bush administration, Morgan Reynolds, argues that no planes were used in the attacks. Reynolds claims it is physically impossible that the Boeing planes of Flight 11 and 175 could have penetrated the steel frames of the towers, and the digital compositing was used to depict the plane crashes in both news reports and subsequent amateur videos. They found a place. There were no hijackers, Reynolds insists. I know, I'm out of the mainstream, but that's the way it is. According to David Shaler, the only explanation is that they were missiles surrounded by holograms made to look like planes. He says, which would be well beyond the capabilities of contemporary hologram technology. Watch footage frame by frame and you will see a cigar-shaped missile hidden in the World Trade Center. Most no planes adherents, including Thierry Mason and Reynolds, assert that either CGI of a passenger's plane was overlaid onto a winged cruise missile or military aircraft, or that the computer-generated images of a passenger plane were inserted into the video footage and plane-shaped explosive cutout were planted in the buildings in order to create the impression of plane impact. Some truth movement veterans have repeatedly refuted the no-plane claims. In fact, discussions of no-plane theories have been banned from certain conspiracy theorist websites, and advocates have sometimes been threatened with violence by posters and other conspiracy theorist websites. So, just a few cover-up allegations. So, cockpit recorders. According to 9/11 Commission report, both black boxes from Flight 77 and both black boxes from Flight 93 were recovered. Flight 77's CVR has said to be too damaged to yield any data. On April 18, 2002, the FBI allowed the families of victims from Flight 93 to listen to the voice recordings. In April 2006, a transcript of the CVR was released as a part of the Zacchaeus Moussaoui trial. 2 men, Michael Bellon and Nicholas Demasi, who worked extensively in the wreckage of the World Trade Center, said in the book Behind the Scenes Ground Zero that they helped federal agents to find 3 of the 4 black boxes from the jetliners. So, the next one is about CIA recruitment efforts. So, Richard Clark, who headed the government anti-terrorism efforts in 2001, theorized CIA Director George Tenet ordered the agency withhold information about Nafal al-Hazmi and Khalid al-Mihdhar from the rest of the government in an effort to cover up the agency recruitment of the two. George Tenet released a statement denying the agency deliberately withheld information about the pair, and noted Clark himself said he had no proof. So, probably the huge thing that happened a long time ago, more than 20 years ago, yeah, and still have lots of talks about it, and lots of conspiracy theories, because probably it happened just in times where people didn't have that much technologies, they didn't have much cameras all around the streets, people didn't have much mobile phones to take what they've seen, and this also created lots of conspiracy theories about what actually happened, and also do not really clear answers from the government made people think that it could be believed that something is wrong about what happened.